I was just so reactive, and I was so like, everything was just like, like it would come out. Like I'd be quiet for so long, and then one little thing would trigger me, and then I would explode.
Welcome everyone to First Gen Healing, a podcast on Latinx healing and awakening journeys. My name is Priscila Luna. I am your host and your intuitive prima. And I am here with someone special, someone that I realized I've been planning to make this episode with since last year. I think it was in the fall of last year. So without further ado, Atalie, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I am a big fan. Let me tell you, I've actually listened to your podcast multiple times before, and I just feel like it's such a blessing to be able to be on here now. So thank you for having me.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. And if you guys aren't watching the video part of this, she does have a beautiful sign behind her that says the bitter woman. And I feel like that already incites some like mystery. And I definitely want to learn more about that. But in this part, as you may know, then Atalie, we like to talk about your story. I like to learn about the raw, real versions of healing and awakening journeys for first gens. And so where can we start with your story, or what feels most alive to start sharing?
I'm like, damn, where do we start? I mean, we can take it, all the way back to childhood. But I think really kind of to give you some context about like the bitter woman, right? Like you talked about the sign and the story behind it, the story behind why I do what I do. A lot of it is centered in healing as a bitter woman. And I think we can start from there if that feels good. We'll talk about why I called myself the bitter woman, and how that has led me into a very like, I don't know if I would say crazy healing journey, but it's been like, it's very soul led, and I love that. So I'm first gen. I grew up in Southgate. I'm a daughter of immigrants. I'm also the eldest daughter. And so growing up, if you can imagine, I had a ton of responsibilities. I had a ton of pressure. And I also say too, I also experienced a lot of trauma growing up. And it wasn't until I think probably like my late 20s that I realized like how much trauma had impacted my life, to the point where I actually was a bitter woman. Like I was bitter as fuck,
Dang. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. And really what it comes down to is that like my bitterness was just anger, right? I had so much anger, like when you grow up, like for me in my household, it's like no one ever allowed me to really speak. I wasn't able to speak my mind. It was always just like I even think you say this too. It's like kind of like the good girl, right? Like I know that some of your work is about like being the good girl, the obedient one. And that was me, I had all this like harbored anger, and
a good girl doesn't get angry, right?
Right. The good girl doesn't get angry, but it manifests into others, like it manifests in other ways.
Yeah, of course, because it's like a real emotion that everyone experiences, but I feel like we're conditioned or not allowed to maybe express it as fully as it needs to be. I love that you're kind of bringing in like, sometimes it doesn't fully look like that. It could look like, oh, you're so bitter, right? Or you're so resentful, or it can be named in different ways. So I love it. Okay, bring us in a little more.
And so it wasn't, I want to say probably like late 2019 and 2020 that I started to really, I think, start my healing journey. I didn't know at the time that's really what it was, but it was basically me deciding to quit my HR job, right? And we'll get into like, you're like, wait, it's all over the place, but I quit my HR job. I then went on a 1 month trip. I went to Mexico, I went to El Salvador, I went to Costa Rica, I went to Guatemala. And it was like through my traveling and those experiences that I really, I think, started to develop like a relationship with spirituality, right? And being able to understand myself. Because this is like, think about it, like as an oldest daughter, like I never had a chance to really just do anything just for myself. And I
Yeah.
took that risk of like, okay, let's break off and travel. So
Mm.
what I found there is that I wanted to actually just be a nomad and just explore the
Aw.
world.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you do
learn
this
how
trip alone?
I did it by myself. Yeah,
Wow. Okay. Okay.
yeah, I did it by myself. And then after the month ended, I ran out of money, so I had to come back. And I was trying
Okay.
to figure things out. Right, I was trying to figure things out. And what I ended up doing is I ended up having to go back to work, right? So I did end up going back into the HR world. But
Okay.
essentially, what I had manifested in me is I knew that I wanted to do something like for myself. And then that's
Mhm.
kind of really how, like, the bitter woman, it was really more of just a way to express myself, really started.
Mhm. Okay, first of all, I'm thinking this is crazy because in 2019 is also when I quit my job for the first time, like my HR job.
Oh,
And it was
really?
like, oh, I'm doing this for me and I don't have a backup. And I also say how I ran out of money and I was literally down to almost zero. And I was like, okay, fine. I haven't found myself enough to know where I want to go next. But I
Mm-hmm.
know now that this is temporary, that whatever, like that HR for me is not the end goal. So I'm wondering, like, how did that feel like for you? It sounds like you already knew as well, right? Like I want more out of life.
Yeah.
Um, but what did that feel like then? Was it like I want to experience more? I want to it was or was it like centered around travel? What was your experience like in those kind of like in betweens before needing to go back to HR?
I think I just crave freedom. Like, I
Mm,
feel like I
okay.
just wanted freedom, you know? I think when you're in
Yeah.
a 9 to 5, which, I feel like I really felt like I was so trapped, right? Because I had no freedom over my time. It was like the same cycle over and over again. Wake up, hit
Yeah.
the computer, go to work, right? Deal with a bunch of shit, and then you clock out at 5 o'clock, and maybe you have some time for whatever it is that you want to do. But then it was like
Yeah.
over and over again. And I felt like my soul was really being depleted in that cycle,
Mm.
like,
Mhm.
and realistically speaking, like we still gotta work, like, right? Like we live in a
Yeah.
capitalist society, so it's like we gotta work and we gotta, provide for ourselves. But I just knew that like I needed that freedom and I needed that like opportunity to express myself in a way that
Mhm.
like the HR world didn't really let me do that, like you have to abide by all
Mm.
the rules and compliance and all that shit. And
Yeah.
like that creative expression, I feel like that's what I really was like craving.
Okay. Did you know that you were creative prior to this break, or was it because of it that you found
No,
that?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I don't think I did. I think
Mm.
that I suppressed it, but slowly as you start to kind of peel the layers of like who you are and you start to kind
Mhm.
of heal a lot of those wounds, I feel like, you tap into that inner child, and then that inner child is the
Mm.
one that's creative, that's artsy, like who doesn't care if she's like, coloring outside of the lines. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's when I started to really feel that like
Mhm.
creativity, and we
Mhm.
manifest it in different ways now through like a podcast, right? Through our
Yeah.
work, like that's all creative expression.
Oh, yeah. Again, so interesting. Around that time is when it's actually exactly when I discovered creativity because I was like, you know what? Like, I used to always say, I'm not creative. I don't know if maybe you said that too. Like, oh, I wish I was creative, like other people are. And then I don't know what it was. You mentioned being soul led. I feel the same, where it was like, have you even given yourself the opportunity to be creative? And the reality is like sometimes as like whether it's just eldest or being first gen or feeling like in survival mode, you don't actually get true opportunities to like learn something new, learn something different, do something just for fun. So it was like where I realized I could tap back into that. I don't have to be,
Mhm.
little again just to be able to do that. So what were ways where maybe like, maybe the bitter woman didn't fully exist for you to channel it into that? Like, what are some ways that you started to channel your creativity through in the beginning?
That's a good question. I'm like, I'm trying to think. Um, ways, I want to say for me, usually it's always been like, I think two parts is like, I think just like my space and like even myself is a form of creativity, like how I dress or even like tattoos. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's part of it is like, if you can see, if you're not watching the video, like the tattoo that I have here on my chest, like to me,
Mm-hmm.
that's art, right? And I wanted to be able
Mm,
to kind of put that and create like who I was through tattoos. I don't know if that makes
okay.
sense. But that's how I started. It's like because
Yeah.
then you break that mold too, right? Like when you're in HR,
Yeah.
it's in like, well, okay, you need to dress professional. Like you can't show your tattoos. You have to do this. Like depending on where you work. And for me, I really kind of just was like, no, like I like this is like I'm who I am, and if you like it, you're gonna like it. And if I have a tattoo, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, yeah. First of all, your tattoo is beautiful, and I do feel like it has like it is a statement, And to
Yeah.
think like, "Oh, you were in HR before." Um what did you hear the voice of like, "Pero Atalie, tú eres una niña responsable que es un ejemplo para sus hermanas o hermanos que, fuiste a la escuela." Like, what happened to that voice? How did you overcome it? Because I feel like it becomes louder when we're starting to like almost take that leap and trust ourselves fully.
Well, Priscilla, I think I did hear that voice, but that
Mm-hmm.
voice was telling me do it because you are an example. And I think the younger version of myself really craved to see like who I am now and to know
Mm-hmm.
that like I think especially for women, specifically is that we're always told that like, okay, you are the example, but the example isn't physical. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Mm,
despite the fact that, like, I am an example, exactly. I'm an example that I'm smart. I'm an example that I'm fucking, really good at what I do. And I still present myself that way. It has no, like, it has no weight of my character. And so when we say
yeah.
that, like, you're responsible, fuck yeah, I am responsible because I show up. And just because
Yeah.
this is how I present myself, it has nothing to do with like who I am as a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that. It's interesting because when you're making these changes, it almost feels like you're leaving a version of you behind to switch into what you're next. But you're actually rebranding everything that you already are. You're smart, you can achieve things, but now I'm going to represent me as I do them. Now they're going to fully represent who I am, and I love yeah that you're bringing that in because I think um like you said, in my work, I do deal with, or not deal with, I work with, like good ehas, right? That
Mhm.
hold that, and sometimes it's held against you to the point where you shrink so much that it's
Right.
not you anymore. And so it's kind of like, actually, this is my way of representing what you see in me. And if you don't like that, that's okay. But this is a representation of me. Like I am a leader, let's say, and in leading, I'm leading my life the direction that I want to, right? Because it almost feels like there's moments and times where people like feel closed in by the things that make them great. Like it's kind of like,
Mhm.
oh, but everyone's saying all of these good things about me, then why do I feel so small? Maybe
Right.
people praise you for like, oh, you're so smart, and you do this great, etc. And it's like, okay, well, why do I feel like I can't actually speak my full mind? Especially I'm thinking, I guess, in the corporate world where sometimes as first gens we have great work ethics, like
I'm gonna put it out there, maybe even the best work ethic, honestly.
yeah, I think so too. I think so too. But if it's only praise when you stay small, it's only praise when you align with the politics of the company and you don't speak
Mm.
out, then it honestly shuts you down because then it's like you're not fully using your potential, your passion. Do you feel like you ran up against that where maybe like I think a lot of us are really passionate and we have a lot of love and like traemos como fuego, you know.
Yeah.
But in the corporate world a veces se va apagando because we run up against so many walls and so many no's and so many like actually like let's just tapa eso, ignore it, you know. Do you feel like you that was part of what led you to be like, I'm out, you know, like I need something different?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, like I said, like part of me was like dying in that corporate setting, and don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, like there's been moments where I am grateful for my career. I'm grateful for kind of the opportunities that I had, but it just like I couldn't fully express myself, you know. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
I was encountered with like I had all these ideas, and I tell myself too, even like the work that I do is that I was like I had all the answers, but I stayed quiet and I let someone else share their answer, right? So I already like when you know like when
Mm,
you're in a meeting with somebody and then
yeah.
you're like someone asks you something, they ask a question, the boss asks a question, and then I'm like I already knew the response, but I never allowed myself to express it, right? And I think
Mm,
that a lot of the like the corporate environment is really designed that way, you know, and
mm,
it's never designed to allow us to be like fully feel like we belong. Part of the reason why I do the work that I do now, right, with like I do like trauma informed workplace trainings and I do leadership coaching is because it's exactly for that reason. Is because there's so
mm.
much layers there that you know we have untapped potential and we
Yeah.
have an opportunity to really like create in a work environment where you can express yourself, you know. And I'll tell you this, that I didn't necessarily just leave HR. Like the time that I went back to HR, I got laid off,
Mhm.
you know. So it's like the universe
Mm.
told me, like the universe forced me into it, like the universe
Yeah.
forced me into it, and it's been a blessing, right? But the
Wow.
universe, like, that's it. Like I left first time on my own, then I came back,
Yeah.
and the second time it was just that was it.
Okay. How much longer after you came back did you get laid off?
I want to say I was about 2 years. So, like 2019, I quit. It was only for like a little bit. And then 2020 is when I got back into the workforce and then the pandemic hit. And so it was in 2023 that I got laid off. So that's like, yeah, so it's about 2.5 years or so. And
Okay.
then here we are now.
We're about to get into another juicy part of your story, which is like your spiritual awakening. And you've talked about like the universe a little bit, and I love that. It's like, my people.
Yes.
But I think like yeah, it's so interesting when you start to see that a lot of the things you're being redirected because a layoff to HR Atalie, I feel like would have been maybe detrimental, right?
Oh,
Like,
yes.
right? Yeah. And instead though it almost feels like you were able to internalize it as like it's me being redirected into the path that I'm supposed to go into. So how cool and how special. Um Before we transition into your awakening, like how did the bitterness show up? Where did like was it outward that people would tell you like, "Ay, estás amargada," you know, "por qué no?" Whatever. Was it internal where you're like, "Man, I'm just mad at the world." Like what was the yeah, where did the bitterness come in?
I think it was both. Okay,
Both.
so it was
Okay.
both. So anyone, it's a love hate with my family, but they will probably tell you that, you know, I probably wasn't the best person to be around. Like even my sisters will tell you that like it's like I'm a completely different person, you know. And I think
Mm,
it is a little touchy because I'm not always proud of it, but I know to not like shame myself about it. But I definitely was like I was mean, like I was
mm,
really, really mean. Like mean in the
okay.
sense of like how I treated my sisters, like mean in the sense of like how I treated my family. Like I was just so reactive and I was so like everything was just like you know, like it would come out. Like I'd be quiet for so long and then one little thing would trigger me and then I would explode, right? And that's like
Oh,
very mean.
yeah.
And then at the same time, then I would feel so guilty, right? And then like that inner
Okay.
dialogue within myself would start to beat myself up, be like, oh, like, I hate that I said that. I hate that I did that. Like, I wish that I could just, like, I didn't want to be that. That's how I felt, like the conversation that I had with myself, you know? So it was both. And then I was just like, I hated where I was. I hated just like, I wasn't happy, you know, like I wasn't.
Mm,
So
mm-hmm,
it was both. It was all of that. And now that I know it, right, it's just like when you have anger, like it has to go somewhere, just like any emotion. You have like you let it flow through you, you know. But the
mm-hmm.
way that I allowed it to come about was just in a harmful way, both to
Okay.
myself and to the others that I actually cared about, you know.
Yeah.
And so when I
Mm-hmm.
started to actually tap in and to heal, I started to forgive myself, and I started
Mm,
telling myself like, hey, like there's you I only knew so much, you know, like our parent, like at least for me I could say, and I don't know for a lot of first gen, like our parents didn't have like the tools and the skills to teach us emotional regulation, right?
yeah. Yeah.
And like, you know, a lot of it too is things that I was modeling a lot of the behaviors that my own family had, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
all of us, like I can tell you right now, my whole family, like there's a lot of bitterness still there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so to answer your question, like that's what
Ooh.
it's both.
Yeah. I appreciate that and that reflection because I think that, sometimes we see them as like las tías juzgonas, right? Like there's judgment there, or las mamás que buscan como something negative out of any experience. And in reality, maybe when you put on your empathetic lens, it's like potentially behind or underneath that, there's actually like repressed anger, lack of being able to express their emotions or feel like they can't, not knowing how to communicate them, maybe not even having the language to say, oh, I feel this way because of blank. And then
Mhm.
therefore, every time I experience something positive, I find something negative, right? And so those are reflections that, wow, it's beautiful that, you got to a point to be able to know, like, oh, this is what that is. But some people, I think, especially like you said, maybe like the older generations or as first gens, we experience a lot of people that hold that bitterness and don't know what to do with it, and just display it in ways that maybe feel inconvenient or rude. But it's actually coming from a different place. They just don't know how
Yeah.
to do it
And
differently.
and if you think about it too, like if you think about like your lineage and you think about your family's history, like think about how far back like it goes into who had an opportunity to actually to heal, right? And who had an opportunity
Mm,
to have those tools. And I think about it, it's like a lot of it is just like passed on and passed on, right? Like my grandma, for example, like that woman is the strongest woman that I know, but also the most like the bitterest, like you
mm,
know, like
mm-hmm,
angry, you know, but she never had a
mm-hmm,
chance. Like, you know, she lived through a war, like she lived through poverty, like there's a lot of things there that she never had an access to, and you can't blame them for that, you know, like you
yeah,
can't blame somebody for that. And that's why it's like when you like now that I'm here and I was like the first person to be born here, I know that there's different opportunities that I have, you know, in a different way I can
yeah,
see things
yeah,
from, you know, my family.
yeah. Does that tie into, now maybe we can transition to into your awakening, and you mentioned, I think you called it karmic cycles or debt, algo así. Um, does that tie into that? Is that how you kind of connected some dots, or is this something different, what you refer to as karmic
I mean,
for
it's
you,
a,
your lineage?
I think it's a little bit of both. So I'll share with you. So I love that you actually said karmic debt because that's actually part of like my, like, I don't know if it's like through the awakening, but I can tell you when I really went deep, that's like, that came up a lot for me.
Okay.
And a lot of that is that in 2020, when the pandemic hit, we were all locked up, right? So that was like, I would say, like, todos, and I think this is the right word, todos los vicios, right? That, like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, like, no more, no more. So what I started to do is just read. Like I don't know what was the first book, but I just know like things started to come up to me where I started to get
Okay.
interested and I started to
Mm-hmm.
go on these rabbit holes learning about spirituality. First it was, you know, I'm really into like Deepak Chopra. That was probably like my
Okay.
first like, you know, spiritual guru
Yeah.
and kind of understanding the world from a different lens, and then understanding karmic energy and karmic debt in a different way too, you know? And I think
Okay.
for me, what I realized too is that I feel like I was the one that was asked to kind of break a lot of that karmic debt from my family. You know, I think that's what we call
Mm,
cycle breakers. Like, I really do think that there's someone within the family lineage that is the one to kind of break that, right? Um, and so that's kind of what I started to do.
okay. Was this concept new to you? Like was it all new, and or like were these terms and things that you were familiar with, but it all kind of started to make sense? Like what was the experience like for you?
I never knew anything about that, right? If you
Okay.
tell me, like, I was just like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But then I started, but when I started to really learn about it, and I think I had time to do it for myself, it's not like someone that was telling me, oh, you need to look into that. That
Yeah.
I feel like things started to click. So I understood the world so much better. You know, like you're like, oh,
Mm,
this is how the world works, right? Like you start
mm-hmm.
to learn about energy, the energy that you put out. And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like when I say this, I went from like bitter to better. It's because I started to really awaken. I started to like, you know, realize and see the world from a different lens. My energy started to change, right? And so were the
Mm,
people around me, so were my environment, the opportunities, like all of this is just like, it's magnetic, you know?
yeah, yeah. Ooh, okay. Let's see. What can we? Because I mean, I imagine some people listening are starting to do that, go down the rabbit holes, learning about the things. Did you have someone that you got to share this experience with? Was it more of a solo one? Like, what was that like?
You know, so it was solo for a while until I think that I started to connect with more people who understood what I was talking about, right? And I think even through
Okay.
the online community, I can share
Yeah.
like, you know, coming across like Kara, and then like even just coming across your page, like you hear things, you're like, okay, so I'm not the only one, you know? And then
Mm-hmm.
there's always alignment with that. And so the
Mm-hmm.
people that you start to attract are on the same vibration, have that same understanding. And so I'm
Yeah.
no longer alone on it, but at first I was. And if I talk to this about my family, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
They're like, girl, like you're on another planet here.
Dude, just yesterday, so I'll share you guys. I'm currently in an Airbnb with my family, right? And so yesterday, my sister's telling me about like her corporate drama and everything that she's experiencing. And as I'm like talking to her, I mean, I'm HR, you're HR, you know, like I feel como que no nos metemos tanto because we've heard so much of it, you know, like I
Yeah.
don't empathize maybe as deeply as a coworker would because it's just like high level, how can I solve this, you know, as opposed to like, oh, she looked at you that way and then she said like no me meto en eso, right? But anyways, as I'm listening to her, I'm like, when you say this, like what part of your body activates? I was like, because I
Ooh.
feel it in your lower abdomen. And I was telling them that when I tune into energy, like I sense in a lot of people there's like a black hole. It's kind of like this dark
Mm.
energy, or it's not like a dark energy como un espíritu, sino it's like one that will never be satisfied. So there's a hunger that will never be full, right? And a lot of people
Mm.
act out of that. And so, like, they do things in the world from a place of wanting to feed that hunger that actually is bottomless. It's a bottomless pit. But, anyways, I think it's super interesting. And as I've learned about it, I love sharing it with people. But they were just like, anyways, like, you know, like when they heard me. So I resonate so much. I was all like, oh my God, I'm like discovering the root of your thing and this is going to help you. And to the right person, they would be like, whoa, like I've never realized that. And, but they're not, you know, aligned, let's say, in that way. And so, yeah, they were just kind of like, I see, luego, I was like, oh, okay. So, yeah, I get you. I think I'm the one from another planet también on this side.
But you know, I hope that everyone has an opportunity to be able to see what you see, right? Or like to see through that lens, because you can understand that like the drama that used to be so like big for you becomes so much smaller, or it gets removed, because you start to understand. I think the biggest thing is like you can't control somebody else, but you can control yourself, right? You can
Yeah.
understand yourself. You can have that relationship with yourself and understand like why are things bothering you. And so like you said like the black hole, it reminds me of like purpose. It's like when you have a black
Mm-hmm.
hole until you find your purpose, it's like the soul and your soul's purpose on life. Like we all have a purpose here. And hopefully I'm not like sounding like too woo but what I'm trying to
No.
say here is that like you're never going to be full, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can find that purpose. And then that's where you get
Yeah.
that alignment.
Yeah.
So I think it's beautiful that you can even tap into that. Like that's powerful. That's a power.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, but they were just like, no, but no, it's true. Like when you operate from empty, because that's what you're operating from, like this empty, like black hole, it's like the things that you are gravitating towards are never actually going to fulfill you. But like you're saying, if you
Yes,
if you operate from fulfillment, it's actually like you're already full, and from there you want to share that, right?
exactly.
And so like it's such a switch. Even like I hadn't thought about it in that way. That black hole turns into, it's actually something different. It turns into something different, and then you go from there. So like how did you start to do that? How did you start to go from the bitter woman who maybe didn't get to see the light in the people, in the situations, in in yourself, maybe, right? Like how did that transition go as you started to alchemize that bitterness and realize maybe it's part of my power, maybe it's my connection point to a lot of people.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I still struggle with that because sometimes I think that like when I go back, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that I have like my memory isn't always there. Like do you know what I mean? Like I don't know if you ever had that word
Mm,
like you're so just living it that you don't necessarily can pinpoint the exact tangible thing, or is it
okay.
tangible? But I
Yeah.
will say that the best thing that I've done, and I always share this, is like it's fucking simple, but I just started to journal. Like
Mm,
literally, like it allowed me to alchemize so much because I never had words to express myself. I never had a way to just like share my most raw, unfiltered thoughts. And really, what
mm-hmm.
I started to see is like when I started to journal, I started to pour so much out. And then that's how I started to kind of like bring to life all of these like dreams that I had here. And I started to find my
Mm,
purpose. And it was really just on a piece of paper. Like I'd be writing and then things would
yeah.
be clicking to me. It's like, oh, okay, so this is what
Mm,
I meant to do, like
mm-hmm.
I tap into that like have healed, I think, by myself, by reading, by connection, by learning to love myself, right? By learning to love others, and having empathy. And then
Yeah.
through that, it's like, okay, cool. Like I think that's what I'm supposed to do. Like I think I'm supposed to share that
Mm,
with others. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Like, and that's powerful. Like being able
Mm-hmm.
to share. I know it can sound cheesy and I don't care, but like sharing your love with somebody, like you can feel that. Like that's such a
Yeah.
powerful source.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Ooh, okay. Wow. So I mean it's true. I think it is a lot of small shifts. Crazy too how journaling can be like maybe you said you craved freedom. Maybe it started to give you that freedom that you were craving, in order to explore yourself, your thoughts, your emotions. Um and it's funny because like I do think a lot of the messaging around healing and awakening is like, "Hi, it's love, like the whole purpose of life is love," right? And when you feel so far away from that, it feels like so, well, at least for me, at some points when I would hear that, I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, what do you,
Right.
but as you start to unravel everything and peel all the layers, I do think that like, yeah, it's even that to a try, like when you're loving someone because you feel empty and you hope they love you back, that's such a different interaction than I truly love myself and I want to love you. And the
Exactly.
energetic exchange is so different, right? And it does provide a different form of presence, I think, a different experience of love for the other person and for yourself. Because you're not hoping it gets reciprocated and like, oh, it's not valid until it does, you know? I don't know if that makes
Mhm.
sense, but like
It
sometimes we
does.
operate from that place.
It does, right? And I think what it goes back to is like that's actually fear. Like you're afraid,
Mm.
you know? So it's only two, it's
Mhm.
like the opposite. It's like fear and love, right? And so much of it, like when you start to like when you're fearful, then that's it's not really like it's not authentic, but then love is. And like I think that's what really like you can say like it seems far off, but that's like what really healing is like. Yes, you come back to yourself, right? And what that means for anyone
Mm.
who doesn't understand that is just like, it's like before all of like the programming, maybe before all of the trauma, we live in such a world that is just like so intense and so much so fast all at the same time that it's like it's hard to like I don't think it's by accident, like you come into this world to experience a journey, and then I hope that everyone has the opportunity to experience that journey of like, hey, like it's love, but that doesn't mean it comes with just like rainbows and butterflies, right? Like you got to go like
Yeah.
you get into the dark, like you have to know the night light, you have to know the dark, you
Yeah.
know.
There's probably a lens that we share, that we can see it that way, that we can view it that way. And I think, like, I hope that those that are listening that maybe aren't fully there, these are breadcrumbs for you guys to continue, because we see this in retrospect. It makes so much sense in retrospect. But in the beginning, it is as simple or as hard as, I think I need to quit my job, and maybe no, you don't see like, oh, wow. And I'm doing this because I'm finding my purpose in alcohol. It's like, no, it's just like my soul is dying, or I can't take this anymore. And then you get the next breadcrumb, like, what about creativity? Like, when was the last time I dreamt without limits?
Mhm.
I was talking to a friend of mine I recently, and she's in, like, let's say, in an in-between period, and I was like, if I was a fairy and I can come and give you the life that you dreamt for a year, what would it look like? And she was like, well, I guess I would want like a part-time, well, I would want to update my car, she said, like maybe to a
Mhm.
newer model. Okay. She's first gen too. I'd want and wants to be, or is a writer and wants to do that full time. So I was trying to like, let's open that can of dreams, right? But she was like, and maybe a part-time job so like I could, be stable and like pay my bills. And I started laughing so hard. I was like, girl, I'm a genie that can make your dreams come true, and you're asking me for a part-time job? And then she started laughing too. She's like, oh my God, you're so right. I was like, capitalism has a chokehold on you. Like,
Mhm.
we are so conditioned that truly, like, we don't know how to dream. We don't know how to tap into, like, not only creativity, so like artistic wise, but like with our own lives, right? Like, how can I
Exactly.
open that, box for me? What do I want out of this life? And I love that moment because even though like she didn't fully express like her wildest dreams, I think it gave her insight into like, maybe I'm really limiting myself, and like what's
Mhm.
possible for me, what I want out of life. And so I think, like, as we're sharing this, that's sometimes on the other side of daring to look a little bit beyond what you're used to, look a little bit beyond but what feels scary, right? It kind of like opens the world up for you. So I would love to know, what was on the other side of that for you, as you started to dare to dream and open up to life in a different way. What has aligned? What has felt really good, exciting?
I mean, this right here, like the bitter woman is not something that was just like inside my head, but it's something that others get to experience too, right? Like it's through like
Mm-hmm.
community events, it's through me being able to like work with other women and, coach and being able to, I say, like design these trainings that before I was on the other side of HR doing it for somebody else, or on
Mm-hmm.
the other side of it at being told to take a training that didn't represent me, right? That
Mm.
didn't necessarily like speak to me. And I feel like to me, I was always asked to like fit into a box, and the box was never my box. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I know it sounds like maybe it sounds like to me that is big, because for me, like I always told like follow the thing, go that 9 to 5 route, get the degree, do this and do that. And I never thought like even entrepreneurship could be a way to be creative, and it could also
Mhm.
be a way to like help others, because you get to like, especially for first gen, like there's so many of us who are doing things for the first time and will still continue to be doing things for the first time. And having
Yeah.
someone to be able to support you along that and to say, no, like everything's always designed. I say this for like white women. And it's like, what
Mm.
about for the first time, you're at like it's being designed for you. Like it's being designed to
Ooh.
tailor to your experience, to your needs, to how you see the world. Like I think
Yeah.
that's incredible. And at the
Yeah.
same time, like I think I would say that on the other side of the dream, like I'm still dreaming. Okay. So
Okay.
if you're a genie and you ask me, I'm like, yes, like, I want to just see the world. Like, I really just want to be able to, like, be bound by nothing.
Mm.
But I also am just, like, excited to just allow things to unfold too, because
Mhm.
so much of, I think, at least for me, like, part of the work that I'm doing now is that I'm still very much in that, like, what's next? What's next? What's next?
Oh, I
You
see.
know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now I'm kinda like, well, like, let's go back to, like, just seeing what happens. Like, knowing that and trusting that, like, maybe the vision I had 2 years ago it's unfolding. I don't see
Mhm.
it today, but it is. And I hope that makes sense.
I think what I found, and maybe it's what you're speaking to, you can tell me if it's not though, but it's like I'm constantly fighting against who I always was, like,
Nice.
so I opened this amazing door of possibilities and then I tried to like package it again into how I knew it, right? So like now it maybe like bringing corporate to entrepreneurship in some way, because that felt safer, or it felt like, oh, I
Exactly.
know A plus B equals C. Okay, so you get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So then it's like, wait, no, I had tapped into magic. Let me go back to magic.
exactly. Exactly. And you know what? Like, I love that you said that because what it reminds me is that I think I speak to this a lot in the sense that I think it's my trauma, right? It's my trauma response to
Mm,
go back to what's normal. And as you start to heal, like, it's a never ending journey, like, there's
yeah.
deeply rooted. What I will say that I'm learning now is to really work with my body more than just my mind, because when they teach you
Mm,
so much about like healing, a lot of it we think is just the mind, but it actually really is like within the body. And that's the phase that I'm in now. And then my body's
yeah.
still remembering, parts of the past. So it's like that battle of being able to heal my body, right? To feel safe in this present moment of where I am today. So I'm
Yeah.
not fighting myself to go back to what I used to think was safe. And I hope that makes sense. But
Yeah.
that's where I am now, and I think
Hmm.
that's what it comes down to. Like it's a beautiful experience to be able to tap into that part of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, like you said, it's like ongoing work because expansiveness and abundance also feels like
It's
vulnerability sometimes when you're not used to that.
It is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
vulnerable as fuck. It's gonna strip you and it's like as if you're naked somewhere and it's like, show me everything. It will, right? Because if that's not
Yeah.
what you're used to, that's not what you're, even if in your DNA, if your family isn't used to that, right? If your family has
Hmm.
not known abundance, that's deeply rooted. So
Yeah.
it's a little scary. Like you may be the first
Yeah.
one to actually be able to tap into that.
Right. Yeah. And we don't know what that feels like, or how to move through that, or how to stay in it. I think we like boop, we like pop in and then we pop back out, and yeah, it's an ongoing practice. Before I ask you some resource questions, I would love to give you a moment to share a little bit more about what you do. You sprinkled it throughout the episode, but yeah, tell us a little bit more about the Bitter Woman, what you do, how you work with people, and where they can find you.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you. So the Bitter Woman Network focuses on three different things. We do consulting, we do coaching, but we also really, really center everything we do on community. And so, what I do through the Bitter Woman Network is I design trauma informed workplace trainings. So, really, what that is being able to help create a safe environment for teams and for different
Mm,
folks, especially too coming from the corporate environment and my experience with trauma. That's why I do what I
yeah.
do. I
Mm,
also also coach first gen women of color who are in leadership. So if there's women who are struggling with leading, burnout, I support with that. And then we do a lot of fun community events too. So just things to like really build connection. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's a little bit. And you can find me either on Instagram, so The Bitter Woman, or Heal with Atalie. So those are our two IG
Okay.
handles. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Yay. Yeah. I mean, I think that's so cool that you get to kind of combine your HR knowledge with where you're at now and then
Yeah.
bring that back. I love that. I always felt like, yeah, it's like you can't help as much as you really could, in corporate world because there's so much like red tape, let's say within, but that's so cool that coming back in, you're able to maybe set your own parameters and, expand and burst those bubbles a little bit for people that are still stuck within them. So cool that you do that.
Thank you.
Yay! All right, Mujer. So let's see. What is a favorite healing or mindful tool that you use?
I think I shared this already, but I really, really love my journal. To me, I think it's very accessible because I think if you start to develop a relationship with yourself and you write down in a journal, I feel like there's so much healing with that. And I'll share another one is music. Like, I love music,
Ooh.
and I think it's not probably as conventional, but there's just something about sound that really just like does something for me. And whether that's like, you can listen to different let's say like heart chords or megabytes, like there's some frequencies that actually
Oh,
are
okay.
healing, or even just
Yeah.
like, a different um like album. Like if I go back to like, middle school jams, like that shit is healing for me.
Yeah.
Those are my two
Okay.
favorites. Yeah.
Using it as a tool. Ooh, I guess hand in hand with that, is there a song, a feel good song or powerful song that you like to listen to?
Mm. Mm. Well, I really like this. It's called Future Islands. Like Future
Okay.
Islands for me is like a group that I love, and like just anything that they've like put out has been super like grounding for me. So I don't know if I have one
Mm,
song, but I would say like in terms of band wise, like Future Islands for sure.
Future Islands. Okay. What about a habit or something that you do for yourself every single day?
Okay, so I really love to practice gratitude. Okay. And I think that that was also like the hardest thing for me when I was in like my dark and like super bitter, because I
Mm-hmm.
could find everything wrong, but I could never find anything that I was truly grateful for. And it's
Mm,
super simple, but even today, like being able to speak with you, right? Like I'm grateful for that. Like being able to use
mm,
my legs, like that's like a blessing that folks don't have that. Being able to have a roof over my head. So I practice gratitude. That's every day. I say what I'm grateful for when I wake up, and then I also write down
mm.
what I'm grateful for. And that's really like, I like to keep that, and that keeps me like, sane.
Yeah. Okay. Gratitude. Yes. Okay. Favorite quote or advice that maybe you refer back to or think about?
My favorite one is to be great is to be misunderstood. And that's by Ralph
Mm.
Edmund Emerson. And I really love that is because I used to consider myself as like this like weird girl who was misunderstood. And if we go back to thinking about
Mm.
the topics, right, not everybody understands us, but that doesn't mean that
Mhm.
we're not great. And so I always like to remember that because, to be great is to be misunderstood, meaning when you are powerful, when you are unique, not everyone's going to get you, and that's okay, right? But you're
Mhm.
still amazing.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Okay. And then lastly, the audience is, I would say, primarily first gen. So if you could leave them with a mensajito, just you can speak directly to them. But yeah, something that you want to share with the audience.
Mm, I think for me, my biggest message is always don't forget to extend your hand and bring somebody with you, right? Because there's a lot of us who are first gen who are experiencing new things, but there's a lot of us who are super successful too, right? In our own
Mhm.
space. And because of that, I think, make it easier for somebody else to come along with you. Because
Mhm.
I know that there's still so many of us who need support, and we just need to like open the door for somebody. So if you're first gen and you're listening to this, know that you are very successful, but don't forget, right, that there's others who still need that support. So extend your
Yeah.
hand and bring somebody else.
Oh, that's beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much for
Yes,
coming
thank
on.
you. Thank you
Yay!
so much, Priscilla. I so appreciate you. Thank you for allowing me to share my story, to be able to connect on your podcast. And this has been
Thank
beautiful.
you.
So I appreciate you.
Yay. I'm glad. I appreciate you too. And I love that you're working in the corporate space for our fellow Latinas, first gens, BIPOC, all of those beautiful people. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you found this episode helpful, please make sure that you share it with your amigas, amigos, amigues. And remember, first gen, that I love you, I love me, and I can't wait for you to love yourself.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.